Welcome back to the frequency, traveler. You have found your way to the edge of the known world, where the shadows of history grow long and deep. I am Vector, and I have been waiting for you in the archives. Tonight, we must dismantle a very specific arrogance. It is the arrogance of the modern age, the belief that we are the apex of invention. We look at our illuminated cities and believe we were the first to tame the lightning. But what if the spark was caught thousands of years ago? What if the sands of the desert are hiding more than just stone and bone? I want you to picture a clay pot. It sits dusty and unassuming on a museum shelf, ignored by the masses. It looks like nothing special, just a yellow clay vessel, about 5 inches tall. But inside this humble container lies a secret that defies the timeline of human evolution. A copper cylinder, an iron rod, asphalt stoppers. This is the Baghdad Battery. Academics will tell you it was for storage, or perhaps for electroplating gold. They are desperate to keep the timeline linear. They are desperate to keep the Dark Ages dark. But then we look further west, to the temples of ancient Egypt. We look at the reliefs of Dendera, where figures hold massive, bulbous tubes containing snakes of fire. Are these merely symbols of creation, or are they schematics? Did the pharaohs walk through halls lit not by smoky torches, but by a glowing, cumulus energy? Did they possess the knowledge to harness the very blood of the cosmos? The history books tell you that electricity is a discovery of the last few centuries, but the silence of the desert screams a different story. A story of lost technology, forgotten genius, and a civilization that went dark. Are you ready to question what you have been told? Are you ready to flip the switch? Let us descend into the dust of 1938. We are in the basement of the National Museum of Iraq. It is a place of shadows and forgotten things. German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig is digging through crates of what was labeled as ritual objects. This is the convenient label historians use when they find something they cannot explain. He pulls out a clay jar. It is unassuming, the color of dried earth. But Koenig notices something odd. The weight is wrong. The balance is unnatural. He looks inside, and the narrative of history begins to fracture. Inside the jar is a cylinder of copper. Suspended inside the copper, held in place by an asphalt stopper, is an iron rod. The iron shows signs of corrosion, not just rust, but the specific telltale burn of acid. You do not need a degree in engineering to recognize this configuration. Every chemistry student knows it. When you fill that jar with an electrolyte, vinegar, lemon juice, fermented grape juice, you create a chemical reaction. You create a flow of electrons. Koenig realized he was holding a galvanic cell, a battery, dating back to the Parthian period, or perhaps even earlier. 2,000 years before Alessandro Volta was born, 2,000 years before we supposedly invented the battery. Critics will scream that it was singular, a fluke. They say it was used for electroplating gold onto silver statues, as if that makes it less impressive. Think about that for a moment. Even if it was just for plating, it implies a mastery of chemistry and electrical current that should not exist in that era. But let us travel deeper. Let us cross the sands to Egypt. Walk with me into the Valley of the Kings. We are standing at the entrance of a tomb, dug hundreds of feet into solid bedrock. It is pitch black inside. The air is stale. The darkness is absolute. Yet the walls are covered in intricate hieroglyphs and paintings. The colors are vibrant. The lines are precise. Here is the question that keeps the academics awake at night. How did the artists see? If they used torches or oil lamps, the ceilings would be blackened with soot. Smoke has nowhere to go in a sealed tunnel, but the ceilings are pristine. They are clean. Some suggest they used a system of mirrors to reflect sunlight. Have you ever tried to reflect light through 5 corners and down a 300-foot shaft? The light diffuses. It becomes weak. By the time it reaches the burial chamber, it would be nothing but a faint gray haze. You cannot paint a masterpiece in a gray haze. So we are left with the impossible. They had a light source that produced no smoke, a light source that was portable, a light source that was consistent. Now, come with me to the Temple of Hathor at Dendera. We are going to the crypts beneath the temple. These are narrow, claustrophobic corridors, accessible only to the high priests. The walls here hold a secret that was never meant for the public eye. Look at the relief carved into the stone. It dominates the wall. It depicts a massive, transparent, bulbous object. Inside this bulb, a snake, wavy and undulating, stretches out from a flower at the base. The mainstream scholars tell us this is a lotus flower birthing a snake. They tell us it is symbolic of creation. But look closer. Look with the eyes of someone who knows the modern world. The snake looks exactly like a wire filament. The lotus at the base looks exactly like a socket. And beneath the bulb, there is a cable. A physical, braided cable that trails along the floor and connects to a box. Sitting on top of the box is the god Atum-Ra. But in this context, is he a god? Or is he the source? The generator? The box creates the energy, the cable carries it, and the bulb glows. And there is more. Supporting the bulb is a D-jade pillar. The D-jade is a column with 4 horizontal bars at the top. Archaeologists call it a symbol of stability. But an electrical engineer looks at a D-jade pillar and sees something else. Entirely, they see a high-voltage insulator. The exact kind of shape we use on power lines today to prevent electricity from grounding out. Why would you need an insulator for a lotus flower? You wouldn't. You need an insulator for a device that comes with dangerous power. Imagine the sound in that crypt. Not the chanting of prayers, but the low static hum of voltage, the smell of ozone in the air. The flickering, pale light, casting long shadows against the stone. This wasn't magic. It was physics. But to the uninitiated, to the common farmer outside the temple walls, it would have seemed like the power of the gods. And perhaps that was the point. Technology, when held by the few, becomes theology. We also have to talk about the Ark of the Covenant. The Bible describes it with terrifying specificity. A wooden box, plated inside and out with gold. Wood is an insulator. Gold is a conductor. If you sandwich an insulator between 2 conductors, you create a capacitor, a device designed to store electrical charge. The Israelites were told never to touch the ark. Only the high priest, wearing special garments that included a breastplate of gems and conductive metals, could approach it. What happened to those who touched it without precaution? They were struck down. They died instantly. The texts say it was the wrath of God, but the symptoms describe a massive lethal electric shock. Was the ark a communication device? A weapon? A generator brought out of Egypt by Moses? A man raised in the Pharaoh's own house? Educated in the highest secrets of the priesthood? The evidence is scattered across the ancient world, like broken shards of a mirror. We have the batteries in Baghdad. We have the light bulbs in Dendera. We have the capacitors in the wilderness. They tell us civilization is a ladder, always climbing up, always getting smarter. But looking at these reliefs, looking at that battery in the museum, I fear we are not climbing. We are merely relearning what was forgotten. We are walking through the ruins of a greatness we cannot comprehend. The ancients didn't just stack stones. They tamed the fundamental forces of the universe. And then, something happened. The lights went out. The knowledge was buried. And we were left in the dark, lighting candles, thinking we were the first to see the fire. So we arrive at the most terrifying question of all. It is not how did they do it? We know how. Physics is universal. The real question is, why did it stop? If humanity unlocked the power of electricity 2,000 years ago, why did we spend the next 20 centuries in the dark? Why did we go back to candles and oil lamps? Why did we have to wait for Benjamin Franklin and Nikola Tesla to rediscover the fire? The answer lies in the fragility of knowledge. We assume that progress is a straight line, always moving forward. We assume that once a discovery is made, it belongs to the species forever. But that is a lie. Think of the Library of Alexandria, the greatest repository of human knowledge ever assembled. Mathematics, astronomy, engineering, medicine, it all burned. When those scrolls turned to ash, the lights literally went out. We didn't just lose stories, we lost blueprints. We lost the instructions for civilization. The Baghdad Battery and the Dendera Lights suggest a world where technology was guarded. It was not for the common man. It was the province of the elite, the priesthood, the initiated. And when the elite fall, when empires crumble, when invaders sack the temples, the secrets die with them. The priests who knew how to mix the electrolytes were killed. The engineers who designed the insulators were enslaved or slaughtered. And just like that, the grid goes down. Generations pass, the batteries dry up, the copper corrodes, the glass bulbs shatter, and the people forget. The technology becomes a myth, the myth becomes magic, and eventually, the magic becomes a fairy tale we tell children. We look at the Baghdad Battery, and we see a primitive curiosity. But perhaps we are looking at the wreckage of a future that never happened. Or rather, a future that was interrupted. It forces us to look at our own world with a trembling kind of fear. We are so proud of our internet, our power grids, our artificial intelligence. But how durable is it, really? If the lights went out tomorrow, how long would the knowledge last? If the servers melt and the hard drives fail, how many of us know how to build a generator from scratch? How many of us could rebuild the world? We are no different than the Egyptians. We are building sandcastles at the edge of the tide. The Baghdad Battery is a tombstone. It marks the grave of a forgotten science. It is a silent witness to the fact that we are a species with amnesia. We build, we discover, we forget, and we fall into the dark. And then, thousands of years later, we dig up the pieces and wonder why they look so familiar. The next time you turn on a light switch, take a moment to appreciate the miracle. It is not guaranteed. It has been lost before. And the shadows are always waiting for their turn to rule again. Keep your eyes open, traveler. The past is not behind us. It is buried beneath our feet, waiting to be understood. I am Vector. I will remain here in the archives, guarding what remains of the truth. Until the next frequency aligns, do not let the light go out.